way that I see as father and son's relationship is no different than you are the entrepreneur. Your dad, you're the entrepreneur. I'm the son, I'm the entrepreneur. But if I no longer trust the entrepreneur, I'm going to try to go build my own company then. We had gone back and forth. He was trying to text me, get into my world, and I was just kind of doing this every time. So I'd seen him 3 times in my childhood. 2 times were when I was really little, and then the other time was when it was the first time in my entire life I ever saw my mom and my dad in the same room with me. I hadn't seen sun for 3 days. I was smoking weed all day. So everything on the outside looked great. But on the inside, I was dying and I was trying to hide it from everyone.
If you looked at my page, my men are really 35 and older. They're dads, they're business owners, they're married, they're divorced, and they've really prioritized their life in business, but not so much in health. And so they've had to come back now later in life and really recognize, hey, I really need to dial in the discipline here. Why I wanted to bring you on the show is obviously because a lot of my guys have kids, and those kids are 15, 16, 17, 18 and older. And so if they've missed the boat on health and fitness and kind of self-development, chances are their kids have missed it as well.
Yep.
So I had come across your stuff through, we both share Wes Watson as a coach, and I had come across your stuff through Wes's coaching platform, and I started checking it out, and I recognized your dad because I had followed him for a while, and then I said, man, this is really a great story. Now you're kind of taking over your reins, and I'm sure that you had your own journey. So my goal today on the show is to kind of allow you to tell that story, really tell us who you are, what you do, why you're doing it, and then eventually tell people how they can get involved.
I love it. I love it. Thank you so much, Dan, for just having me here. And just, I love being able to connect with other people on this platform as well as like being able to see my story is, I grew up in Canada, so I'm actually a dual citizen.
Are
I'm
you?
American and Canadian.
Nice.
Um, and my parents split when I was 3 months old. So, my dad was staying in the States. My mom went and took me to Canada. And so I lived there for about 18, 19 years. 19 was when I actually decided to take a one-way flight over to California because I was in college and I was very suicidal.
Yeah.
Um, I hadn't seen sun for 3 days. I was smoking weed all day. And then on top of that, I also was just sitting there at the ledge one night and was looking out, and I was on the football team. So everything on the outside looked great. But on the inside, I was dying and I was trying to hide it from everyone.
Mm.
Um, and so at that point, I ended up actually, it's hilarious. I found my dad the way clients find my dad. I found a video of him on YouTube, and I hadn't really talked with him much, so I didn't know exactly what he does or anything like that. And so I just
Yeah.
started watching his YouTube videos, and I was like, huh, he's kind of saying some truthful things right now, and I kind of agree with what he's saying. So I have the number to him. Why don't I give him a call?
So you knew he
So
was your dad? Had you met him or had any relationship with him up until that point?
yes. So I'd seen him 3 times in my childhood. 2 times were when I was really little, and then the other time was when it was the first time in my entire life I ever saw my mom and my dad in the same room with me, and that was when I had signed my scholarship for football to be a kicker at U Ottawa, which was the capital of Canada.
Wow.
Um, when I signed that football scholarship, that's when he flew down, and my mom was there too. And that's the first recorded photo that think I have of of them two in the same spot, and me, and just us with the original family.
Wow.
Um, and so when I called him, I didn't really have a relationship with him. He didn't really know me. We had gone back and forth. He was trying to text me, get into my world, and I was just kind of doing this every time. I was like, absolutely not. You left me and you started a new family. And my sister happened to have the same birthday as me. So I had run a story in my head about how, like, oh, you not only took my life, but you took my birthday. Like, this is just ridiculous. I didn't even think you could take that away from me, but you somehow managed to do that.
Ah.
Um, so a lot of resentment, a lot of frustration. And when I called him, I just wanted to figure out a new way of living. And so when I told him, hey, man, like, this is where I'm at, and I'm just going to be brutally honest with you. Like, I want to step off this ledge. I want to do this, and I don't see any other steps in my life. I have no direction. I have no idea what I'm doing. My mom picked all my college classes, so very overly mothered, underfathered. Um, and to my mom, she was great. Single mom until I was about like 13, 14 when she found her man that she's with now. But at the same time, it's just different when it's not your dad.
Yeah.
Um, And so when I came out here to California, I learned the Warriors Way system, and that was when I pretty much came to California and got my ass kicked for about 2 3 years in military camp type style stuff that he does. And then I went through every program here at Warrior to just try to find myself. And over the course of the last like 6 years, I've been living this way called the Warriors Way system. It's what we teach entrepreneurs and grown guys, and I learned it with them. And I asked the question, which was, I said, Dad, like, why are we always taking guys after they fuck their lives up? Like, that's like what I noticed. It was like, wait till they're like 40, 45, 50. And then when they are like finally like, oh my gosh, everything's falling apart, they come to Warrior. I was like, well, why aren't we teaching this way to young guys
Yeah,
before they screw it up so they have the tools so they don't screw it up as bad as their dads did or parents did or whatever?
that's right.
Um, and he just looked at me and said, there's no one there to teach them. And there's no one qualified to teach them because we're too old. We don't understand their world and we're not a young guy. I was like, sounds good. So I'm sorry, Dad, I quit. Um, because I knew the power that I had experienced and I learned it working with a few young guys here at Warrior that were my age who were living the way as well. And our lives seemed to be working a lot better than everyone else in our age group just because we were around guys like you, um, just pushing us all the time. So that's when I decided, okay, cool. I left the company and I had rent due in 2 weeks. And my dad was like, well, figure it out. So, and that's kind of always been his method with me. He's like, figure it out. So I was like, okay, cool. I figured it out. And I ended up closing about $5,000 in sales the first 2 weeks of opening. And
Nice.
that was just unloading guys saying, hey, I want to teach your sons. I want to get your son on the same system the dads live. And it just kind of took off from there. And I've been running NextGen Academy for about almost 2 years now, about a year and a half now.
Nice.
And I teach young guys how to basically optimize themselves in their bodies, in their spirits, in their relationships, especially with girls. That's a big distraction. And business, teaching them sales skills, teaching them marketing skills. Because I want to teach them all the skill sets I didn't learn in college and that I didn't learn in school, that I actually learned outside of school that helped me really thrive in life, not just thrive in grades.
Yeah.
Hmm.
When did you, how old were you when how old are you now?
I'm 25.
25. All right. So you
Yeah.
moved out there like 20. When did you move out there
Uh,
with your dad?
I was 19.
19. And
19. Yeah.
how were those first couple of years? Like you had no relationship with him.
Oh,
Was it more business than personal?
100%. It was
Yeah.
all, it was mostly business. My dad had looked at me and so my stepmom had worries about me just because of all, what I was in. I get it. She had a home full of girls. They had
Yeah.
all four girls and no guys. So,
You moved into
she,
the house?
yes.
Yeah.
And she was worried about that. So I only ended up living at the house for about 4 months. And then working here at Warrior, I ended up getting my own place, like in another city, a little bit further away.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, it was a little rough because I just didn't know him and I didn't have that dad son connection. And I had the business side mentor, but I didn't have the dad that I always wanted. And he also wanted to have those moments with me, but we couldn't really figure that out. So we would just talk about business. And then we came into a real big problem in the first 2 3 years because my dad he's not dad in the office, he's Garrett.
Yeah.
So when I didn't really like Garrett, because why? Garrett was a dick, and he would call me out on shit all the time. And I would walk in like my first meeting ever here at Warrior. I walked in 30 seconds late. I asked a team member if I could go to the bathroom. He said, "Yeah, you're good." I went to the bathroom, came back. I was 30 seconds late. Like the clock hadn't even turned to 12:01. It was 12 still. And my dad sees me come in last, and this is the first meeting I've ever had, and he just screams at me. And he's like, "What the fuck is wrong with you? Your standards are shit. Like, you think you can be late? You're the last one in the room. Blah blah blah. Get the fuck out of my room and get the fuck out of my face."
Oh
And I'm
wow.
like, "Holy shoot! Like, what? Like, dude, like, I'm just trying to figure this out. I'm 19. Like, come on, dude. Like, it's my first day. Like." And he never had any chill with me, which I actually appreciate.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, because his hard demeanor. I say it to him all the time. Yes, is there a piece of me that really hated that version of him for a very long time? Yes, but it was the side that I hated because of the fact that I never got it in my childhood. So I didn't have that structure of like, hey, he's dad. He tells me what I should and shouldn't do, and he's also going to give me habits and routines that I should probably actually learn from. Because I'm not going to go do Pilates and hot yoga with my mom. So, so that
Yeah.
was that was rough. That was rough for a little bit, and we were talking on stage at that point too, on Warrior stages, on ClickFunnels stages, um,
And
and a
you were
couple other.
joining him? You were joining him, or were
Yes.
you like, yeah?
Yeah, so I was getting on stage with him talking about our relationship and talking about how he just wasn't around and that we were trying to rebuild our relationship and that we were pretty much like a walking testimony to the way that we live. And each year we got closer. It took a lot of collisions, a lot of like, hey, I'm not going to tolerate this from you, or hey, you owe me this because you weren't around. Um, but then about 3 years into me living here, he cut all funds from me. He was like, "You're done. Like, you need to figure out how to live. You need to be a man, and I cannot keep funding your life, and you're going to work for the life you want." So, I had a
Oh.
nice apartment, a nice car. I had the life at 21, 22. I was like, bro, I'm set. Like, there is like, I could have been like what every 22-year-old would have wanted.
Yeah.
Um, and then I lost it all within 3 weeks. Um,
Was there an event that caused him to take it away?
Uh, there was just I kept running the story that he kept owing me stuff because he wasn't around for 18 years. So I was like,
He
"No,
just
you
got sick
owe
and
me
tired of it?
this." Yeah, he was just tired of it. He was like, "You know what? Like your work's crap. You come in, you're lazy. You're playing video games on the weekends. You're not doing anything with your life. So I don't see your work ethic. So I'm not going to keep trying to fund you and help you. So go figure it out." And yeah, he just cut it all. He's like, "I'm not helping you with your rent. I'm not helping you with your car. I'm not helping you with anything. Like." You're done. Um, and that was when, yeah, I lost my apartment and I managed to keep my car. So winning. But I lost my apartment. I ended up having to go stay and stay in a Mexican woman's like backdoor house. Like it was like her like back room or something.
Yeah.
So like every time I went home, I'd get attacked by her dog, and then I would hear Spanish movies all night. And I definitely realized how much I got helped and how much it humbled me to where I thought I had a bunch of unearned confidence because I had all these things, and then not realizing that I wasn't the one that really created it
Yeah.
um, until I had that reality check when I was about 22, and that was actually when I met my fiance now. Was when I had nothing, when I was literally selling my PS4. I was selling whatever I could to just try to keep my car, keep my room, and not end up sleeping in my car.
Yeah.
So that was a crazy, crazy time for sure. And that was like
Yeah.
about 2.5 years ago, 3 years ago.
Were you working for now? Did you stop working for him at that point?
Yeah. I was like, I could make more money. Like I did the math on like how much work I was putting in and then like what my salary was. And this is another piece that kind of edged him to cut everything from me. Was I
Yeah.
was like, dude, I'll make more hourly at McDonald's than I would here. Like this is your rip. Like you don't pay your employees. Like blah blah blah. Like I just started like going off because he's my dad too. So there was kind of this little bit I could say things other employees couldn't say.
Yeah.
Um, and I thought I could get away with it until I didn't. And
Came out.
then, yeah, he just fired me, and it was like, all right, sounds good. So I worked at Vans, and I worked as an F45 trainer, and that was actually when I started to spark into the fitness game.
Wow.
Was about 3.5 years ago. Was when I started about getting into fitness seriously.
So you were kind of, I guess, at somewhat of a bottom, not as low as you were years ago, but you found another bottom just in a different way and trying to figure it out.
Yeah, that's actually what I thought was the bottom.
Yeah.
Little did I know, a year later, I was about to hit the biggest bottom I've ever hit.
Mm.
Um, and so I thought that was it. Like, I was like, damn, Mexican woman's house. Like, I hate this. I got COVID. I had to sit in this little, like, 400 square foot room for 2 weeks. It sucked.
Yeah.
And then I had my girlfriend who, me and her thought it was a great idea. We were like, hey, we can't afford it in California. So fuck it. Let's go move to Houston
Yeah.
because that was on Google. That was like the cheapest place or whatever that we could actually afford a place.
Okay.
And at the time, I had, oh, I was so dumb. I had stopped my lease on my room at the Mexican woman's house, but I hadn't secured the new place or anything. So I slept in a car with my girlfriend for like probably like a week or so, just because we didn't know what to do. We didn't want to. She didn't want to sleep at her parents. I had nowhere to go, so we ended up sleeping in the back of her car, and then we ended up moving to Houston right after Christmas. And we balled out there. I was like, I'm winning. Like I'm making money. It's easy to do. I was spending $500 on sushi a month. Like that's how much I was uselessly spending money.
Yeah.
Um, and then we lost everything in Texas, and I lost my job. I lost. I sold my car, and that was why we were balling because I had made like a good 15,000 off that car. So I was able to spend all this money while I depleted it all the way to zero,
Yeah.
and our electricity got shut off. We couldn't put food on the table, and my girl was looking at me like, "What do we do?" She was working at a cafe till 4 in the morning every day or every night. I was doing Uber Eats every day and every night, waking up at like 7 to 9, doing that like breakfast shift, lunch shift, and night
Yeah.
shift, just to try to make rent. And that was when I really realized that I actually have a video from that time that I go back and watch, um, because I always want to keep that reminder of like, hey, you're never going back here, and you will not allow your lazy tendencies or any of that to allow you to do that to her again, because
Yeah.
you promised her you're not going to do that again. And yeah, that was a really really scary time because we had no family in Houston. We had no support. It was just me and her out in Houston. We literally knew no one. So,
You were doing F-45 and you lost that job?
no, at the time I was like, I was going to do sales for a car dealership,
Yeah.
and they fell through. Then I was doing solar sales, but you know the pyramid scheme of that. So,
Yeah.
like, I was basically calling like I called like 1,000 leads in a week, and not a single one because they had been hit up by every damn telemarketer there was.
Yeah.
So they just pretty much told me to screw off, and that was when, yeah, I had thought I was like, oh, I'm gonna get all these jobs when I get to Houston, and I'll just run off the savings I had from my car.
Nothing fell
Until
through. Then you're doing
everything's
Uber Eats.
yeah, everything fell through. Did Uber Eats, and then I went on a family trip to Cancun, where thank goodness the flights were cheap. My dad said we only had to get the flights. Other than that, they'd take care of us, and they had no idea. They had no idea, and we were decently close at this time. This is like 3 or 4 years after being in California, so
Okay.
okay. We were pretty close, not to where we are now, but like we were pretty close. Um, and we were at dinner that night in Cancun, and they were like, "So how are you really doing?" And I just couldn't. Me and my girl couldn't hold it in anymore. We couldn't fake it, so we just started like kind of tearing up at the table, and we're like, "Here's where we're really at." But we don't feel like we can ask for help, and we don't like. You told me to go figure it out, and so like I can't really like come to you to bail me out, so I got to just figure it out. And that's when he was like, my dad kind of got teary eyed too, and was like, "Son, like that's not what I meant. Like you're not supposed to be sitting there where you're eating like fucking crackers and peanut butter and stuff, and like you can't even afford food, and you're sitting there never asking like for help."
Yeah.
And so like, but I
He had
needed
some
that.
empathy.
Yeah, and I needed that though because I needed to make the switch, and this is what I'm teaching my young guys too. You need to make the switch to where dad's not going to bail you out for everything. Like,
Yeah.
yes, okay, at the extreme level, that's extreme. Like, but when it's like just normal things, like you're not responsible to get me up in the morning. You're not responsible for me to work out. You're not responsible for me to eat well. Like all of these fundamentals in life that I had to learn through these hardships that my dad like didn't bail me out in was what creates power for me now. Like my body, I created that on my own, and I ended up was more fit than my dad for about a year
Mm.
until there was one iconic photo in Cancun where he had the dad bod, I was bigger than him, and then he decided, okay,
Feel
screw
like
it, I'm
that's
changing.
framed.
Yep. And I would make fun of him, and then my mom, like my stepmom, I call her mom because we're like we have that relationship, but
Yeah.
um, my mom started making fun of her with me, or making fun of him with me. And so it got to him, and he flipped a switch, and he stopped surfing, he stopped doing cardio, and he went straight over to Wes, and he went over to Carter, who is his nutritionist and posing coach.
Yeah.
And he's been with them for like the last 2.5 years or something. He's like 235 pounds now. So like
Yeah.
I'm small compared to him. I'm only like 180. So
I,
he definitely beat me there.
I remember 2 years ago, I was following him a lot, and he used to run a lot of ads and
Mhm.
ClickFunnels and all that. So I ended up following him, and I remember he started that journey of going into doing a show and bodybuilding, and then he started getting more tattoos and was like training more. And so you could
Yep.
see something had triggered him to kind of take on a healthier lifestyle and take his fitness to the
Yeah.
next level. And then I
Basically,
think
the family was
your
making
mom
fun of
was
him.
always, your mom had that background, right? Like she
Yep.
was did training, I think.
Yeah, she
But
had done a show. She had done one show beforehand, and when she had started doing that, I got into fitness the exact same time. So we had kind
nice.
of bonded on that. That's what helped us really get our relationship to a place where she trusts me, I trust her. Like I can take my little sister Charlie, who's 1 years old, and like there's not a worry in the world because they know I'm responsible and they know I'll take care of her. So,
Yeah.
but that was built through fitness. My family really bonded over fitness, and it started with my stepmom, and then it trickled to me, and then it trickled to my dad, and it trickled to my little sister Bailey for like maybe a couple months, but she's kind of like she's a 17-year-old girl, so
Yeah.
you know the consistency that has.
But see, that's crazy. Just something like health and fitness, how it'll bring different family members together. You know, like
Yeah.
we have some in-laws that my wife hasn't always been closest with. They've had kind of
Mhm.
disconnect, but one of them got into fitness, and now they just have this connection that they've never had in like 8 years. But now she's curious and more interested, and they've grown tighter just because of that fitness.
Oh, I
So
love
it
that.
brings people together. Yeah.
Yeah, that's what I loved about fitness in the first place was because of the fact that it brought me and my family closer.
Yep.
It brought us to a very cool, like calm, collected manner. We're a very fiery family.
Yeah.
So, like by all means, like I'm sure you've heard stories online at some point about some craziness in our home. So, like, but fitness really brought us together, and it created one love where it was almost like a respect. When I saw my dad change his body, I did not respect him when he had a dad bod and I was bigger than him. I was like, "You're chopped liver. I can take you, and I will beat the shit out of you."
Even though he had more
So,
money, he had more success, you still
yep,
like you're not holding a standard here.
yeah, exactly. I was like, "You can have all the money in the world, and it doesn't matter when I look at you and you have a gut, or when I look at you and you have fat around like your love handles and stuff like that, and you're not like I'm not inspired by my dad, which
Yeah.
is even if he has the money, because like the money's great, cool, okay, I get that piece, the cars, the house, that's awesome, and
Yeah.
yes, we can give that, but through the Warriors Way, I've always been taught for the last 6 years that you're responsible for your body, your spirit, your relationships, and your business. So I don't really care if you're amazing at business if you're fat as shit. I
Yeah.
don't care if your relationship can't possibly be working if you're fat.
Yeah.
Like there's no way there's that attraction or anything. I just know because I know the attraction that I saw my parents have when my dad was had a dad bod,
Yep.
and to see the attraction level that they have now. It's just a
180.
night and day difference.
Yeah. Totally. I even see it because I still follow them now. Like they
Yeah.
got that fire going again, that desire. And
Yes.
it's so important. I part of my journey was a lot inspired by that, like not desiring my wife because I didn't feel good in my own skin. So like I
Yeah.
didn't feel like I should have deserved to play that part, you know. But
Mhm.
then it also trickled into like, well, why is she not desiring me, you know? And you get into this psychological warfare game, and she doesn't even know what the hell you're thinking, but you're just taking these shots at her for no reason, and it's
Yeah.
because you don't feel good in your body. You know, you're having success, but
Mhm.
money doesn't make you feel good.
No.
Initially, it's like, yeah, I got the money, but those toys and those things that I was spending money on, it was like they weren't fixing the gap inside.
Yeah,
And
and then like it was crazy too because that piece of what you're sharing right now is so true because then once he got more fit, he produced more. It
yeah,
was like his lazy tendencies in his body directly correlated in the business. So the things he
totally.
didn't want to address in the business, he didn't know differently than the same with his body. He didn't want to address that. So he just had the same tendency in business and the same tendency in his relationships. He was
Yeah,
more disconnected in God, but more specifically with the family too.
yeah,
Um, and at the same time, like, yeah, it was a weird dynamic because I feel like even when I saw your story, right? Like I saw your story before this, and you were doing buys and tries or whatever before this podcast. When
yep,
I look at you on your story, I go, "Fucking shit, dude, you look great." I'm but
thank
like
you.
as a young man, I'm like, bro, that's an assassin, that's a killer, that's
Yeah,
like someone I can't screw with. Like you and me get in the ring. I have immense amount of fear over the fact that you are jacked and you have that like persona. And I
yeah,
feel like that is needed because if I don't fear my dad in a little sense,
yeah,
just a little sense, It's the same thing as if like you have a dog in the home and they don't know who the alpha in the house is. They're going to naturally challenge the alpha in the house to see if they're the ones that run the house or not. No different than a son with a father. I'm
Yeah.
going to look at him and I'm going to alpha challenge him. And I know I'm not going to win at money, but that doesn't matter. What are you going to do? Pay someone to beat me
Yeah, the
up?
alpha
Like,
doesn't care about the money. It's the challenge of man to
yeah,
man. That's such a really
exactly.
good point. And people don't realize how much as a leader of the house, like they've got to set the standard and they've got to maintain and continue to raise the standard. Because
Yeah.
if you, especially if you're a father to a son, it's like they're going to get standards, right? So
Mhm.
why not set it for them?
And
And
I
there
feel
aren't a whole
so.
lot of people to follow in the world that should be influencing your child more than you, the head of household.
Yes. And that's the crazy thing. I was more influenced by other people than I was my dad, even when I was right beside him. And at the same time, like when I met my fiance,
Yeah.
uh, she was, she's 5'5", by the way. So I know you're a fitness fanatic, so I know you'll understand this. She's 5'5" and she was 220 pounds.
No
So
way.
yeah, like and like I say it in all
When
the
you met,
respect I can.
or was this
Uh,
like her past? Or she
that
was,
was her. That was her past. I met her at 187, 190 pounds.
so she had taken some weight off.
Yep. So she had taken about 20, 30 pounds off at that point. Still very, very noticeably like overweight a little bit.
Yeah.
But I just had a lot of fun with her and she was very committed to the fitness game. She ran 5 miles a day. She was committed and she was very, very intimidated when I was already in the gym for like 2.5 years. So she's never known me not with a six pack.
Nice.
So, and I've known her since she was like 180, 190 pounds to now she's comfortably and have been chilling at about 120, just doing refining at this
Oh, good
point.
for
Like,
her,
things
man.
she
That's
wants.
100 pounds.
Yeah, 100
That's a
fucking
lot.
pounds, dude. I was like, holy shit. And for me, I was 130 that I put on only 50 pounds, but I
Yeah.
went up to 180. So I was going the reverse way. And
Yeah.
so there was almost this like in our family now, there's this huge respect that goes along with like, how do I put this? Like, me and my fiance are very, very bonded to my mom and dad strictly because we've seen my dad with a dad bod and we've seen where he is now, so we respect the journey because I myself had to go from 130 to 180.
You made a
My girl had
mistake.
to go from 220 to 120, and then Danielle went from like her pregnancies to winning first multiple competitions in a row.
Yeah.
um
Phenomenal.
so yeah, it's almost like this, like I know how hard it took to build the body you have right now.
Yeah.
And so I'm like, instant respect off the get go, just by the way you look before you even open your mouth, just because I know you had to be disciplined to get there.
Yeah, that's true,
Hmm.
man. I try to teach guys all the time, but thank you for that compliment.
Of
I teach
course.
that guys all the time. I say getting jacked will change your life. Like you'll get
Hmm.
better job opportunities, you'll have more power of influence, you'll be able to lead people better.
Hmm.
People become much more curious in you. It's like you walk around with this elevated
Hmm.
vibration where people are like, that guy's got standards. I don't know what he's doing, but obviously he's doing something right.
Yeah.
And then if it does translate to business, like because I was swamped in another, I ran before I started Dad Bods. I run one of the leading headhunting companies for software industry.
Okay.
That's my business. That's what I've done for some of the fastest growing software companies out there. We're the leading headhunting firm for product managers.
Mm.
And it was in building that company to over seven figures within 3 years that I went from like an average body to like a dad bod, like a full blown dad bod.
Really?
Yeah, and I was like, man, I spent all this time building this business to finally get to this financial position where I thought I was providing, and I've gotten the most success that I've ever had, and I don't want to get out of bed in the morning. I was like,
Yep.
something's fucking wrong. You know, I had a 3 year old, I just had a 1 year old, and I'm like, I worked my whole life to get a business like this that we were getting 30 inbounds a month from Google, all organic, and my average deal was 75 to $100,000 a placement. And I'm like, and I don't even want to get out of bed to do this job anymore. I'm like, what the
Shit.
fuck, you know? And so I knew it's because the way I feel. It's because the way I look, you know? I'm like, this has to change. And
Hmm.
then as I changed it, I found energy in new ideas. Like that business started to scale. I ended up being more engaged in it, enjoying it more, and then getting into fitness, and then starting to help people on the side, and then getting this idea, and then launching Dad Bods a year ago. And it was like I was like, when you get fit, like you always use the excuse of there's no time, but you
Hmm.
find so much more time because you've got the energy, you've got the clarity, you've got the confidence. You're like, well, if I was squatting 235 200 times, I could make 10 more fucking calls,
Yep.
right? I could do
Yep.
these 15 tasks today. It's only 15 lousy tasks at a computer. Whereas when you're not fit, it's like, oh, I got to do this. Let me get another cup of coffee, and it's this weak mentality. So I always try to teach. We teach people the same thing,
Yep.
that fitness and nutrition is a piece of the puzzle, right? But it's really your habits and your mindset that
Yeah.
set the momentum, and you use fitness and nutrition as a piece of that day to make sure you stay elevated and you continue to progress and develop.
Yeah.
And your program is a big piece of that. Your dad's journey is a big piece of that. And you can't influence people. Like there's a guy I follow. I used to follow. I follow him because he came up on my feed the other day. But he's an Instagrammer, and all he does is like preach these like stoic things.
Yep.
Discipline is this and this, and he's preaching it all. Meanwhile, his face is bloated. He's overweight, and I'm like, how's your discipline and your health and fitness, bro? And he's like, thanks, man. And I was like, well, no, how is it? Because if you're on here preaching about discipline
Hmm.
and defining discipline, then you should have it. Because you have
Yeah.
zero credibility when I look at your page and I'm like, you're completely overweight. Like you
Hmm.
shouldn't be preaching discipline on this page. And
Yep.
so, yeah, like you have to live it. And I think my program has been about that. Your dad's program's about that. But more importantly, your program to the younger guys,
Yeah.
it's like now's the time. Your generation, that's the best time to get in shape because once
Hmm.
you lock in the right mindset early and the habits, like the world becomes your oyster. You can shape and carve and build your destiny and your future any which way. Oh, I need another skill. I know how to acquire it because I built my body. I need to do this. Oh, I know how to do it because I have the discipline. I know my body. I have muscle memory to discipline and get focused. So it's like teaching guys at that stage is so vital. And I think you have the leverage to do that. One, because you have the journey, right?
Hmm.
Like you've gone on the
Yeah.
peaks
The
and
ups and downs.
valleys. You have to have those valleys and those peaks. And then two, you've had the North Star, right? From the business side, from the self-development side, from your dad and all the clients that you probably saw him develop and you've been around. So who's the ideal like age group for you? Like when do you try to start to grab people to say, hey, this is the right time to take this on?
Yeah, so I had tried going all the way down to like 13.
Mm,
That was just a little too young. 13, I'm like, hey, you know what? Let the kid develop into puberty a little bit.
yeah.
Um, but I would say anywhere like, I mean, 50, I have a 15-year-old right now. He is great. Like his parents tell me like, hey, our friends are talking about him, like his discipline and everything. Now he's a smaller dude. He's not going to put on all the weight yet, but like we're working on other things like his YouTube, other stuff. So like he's doing great. But like I find it's about 16 to 25. That's like the main range because I find here's what I found. My generation right now, I my goal is to bring your generation's standards and traditions to my generation
Mm.
because we've become weak. We have become to a place where the average guy I talk to doesn't get up before not honestly before 10 a.m.
That's true.
They're all sleeping in because they have no purpose with their lives. Strong men created hard or easy times, and easy times created weak men, and we're sitting in the place now where we are have a bunch of weak men,
For sure.
and we're going to create very hard times here, and we already are seeing it everywhere with the recession, with the governments, with the constant bickering going back and forth. The fact that we even get offended over pronouns right now is mind boggling to me.
Yeah.
Um, and so we're in this generation of a bunch of weak men, and my goal is to be able to say, hey, from the ages of 16 to 25, I know for a fact you're going to get lost as soon as high school is done, because there is this huge fad around no not going to college. And you know what? I get it because I was a college dropout. But at the same time, that doesn't mean just because we say screw school, they're saying screw school, but they're saying screw learning.
Yeah.
And so they
Very
just
true.
stop learning right after high school. They're like, ah, we're done. Like, I'm going to stay at my parents' house. And this is what I found with all these young guys. So, my goal is to be able to allow them to not only get the discipline, but connect them with God. Just this body right here is the vessel you have. You get one. So, you can either look at it and go, my whole life, I never reached my peak potential.
Yep.
Or I go and I chase my peak potential and I do the work and I get the satisfaction for it. And so, yes, it's anywhere from about 16 to 25. And my average client is anywhere from the ages, most of my clients are about 18, 19, 20,
Mm.
maybe 21, because those are the transition years where they've said, hey, parents, we're not going to go to college. Parents usually always say this, okay, cool, we'll give you a year to figure it out, what you
Yeah.
want to do. They hit that year mark and they're still sleeping in until 11 o'clock in the morning and they're not doing anything. So then
And they
they
have
come
no
to me.
path.
Yeah.
Yep.
And I find too that it's weird. You know how, like, I'm sure you experience this with your stuff. The guys that come into your dad bod stuff, they don't have the physiques they want, obviously. That's why they're there. And through association to the group, they now feel a different sense of power because they're not alone. They
Yep.
have guys that are their age and understand their world, their problems, and their issues that they would come into with their family, wives, kids, whatever.
Yep.
And now you can have collective conversations that help them get over the hurdles that would have stopped them from getting the result in the first place, which is AKA fighting with their wife, fighting with their kids, not prepping their meals, whatever
Yeah.
it was. Same thing on this end. Young guys are sitting in a place where not only are they so sensitive, but in this being so sensitive because everything's an option, nothing's an option. We get paralyzed in decision. Um, they allow themselves to be vulnerable once they're in a group with other young guys.
So
So
important.
you can't fix a body if you can't fix the root of the problem in the mind.
Yeah.
It's
You
impossible.
can't focus on the branches. You got to focus on the root.
Yes. And so
Yeah.
everyone's, oh, I'm gonna get jacked, and I'm like, do you know how many jack guys I know that can't even go be respectful men that go say hi to a woman instead of ask for their Snapchat?
That's right.
Like,
That's the
why?
branch. That's not the root.
That's the branch. So
Yep.
everyone's focused on the branch. And then what happens? They build their whole foundation on the branch. And then
Yep.
the branch snaps and they fall. And they're like,
Their whole
I just
identity is
must,
gone.
yeah, I
Yep.
must be a failure. I don't know who I am anymore.
Yeah.
No, dude, you just didn't build on the root. You built
Yeah.
on a branch and you keep looking at the wrong problem.
Yes.
So that's what I found. And like, I work heavily on mindset, heavily on discipline. And majority of it is I'm more so saying, I'm going to fix your body, but what really I'm going to do is I'm going to give you a purpose and direction in your life. I
Yep.
want to know what you're really passionate about. I go through tons of assessments. I don't know if you've ever done the Strengths Finder test, Clifton Strengths Finder
Yep.
test.
Yeah. I
That's a
have for
great
sure.
one.
Yeah.
Uh, color code, I am a geek about the color code, because I think that that's a huge thing. So I'm teaching them to learn how to be more self-aware and learn themselves, and
That's
so that
awesome.
they can ultimately then get what they want. Because parents, no matter how good of a parent you are, I have a great jack dad who definitely puts the effort and wants to connect and does that. And it doesn't matter how good of a parent you are. My dad doesn't know my problems.
Hmm.
He really doesn't. He never grew up in the day and age of social media at this age. He doesn't know the ample opportunities and things I see online of ways to get rich or ways I could not skip the 9 to 5 or whatever it was.
Yeah.
Um, so you guys grew up in a generation where you could set your mind on something, and there was I'm not saying there wasn't, but I'm saying there was a lot less distractions, like a lot less in your face. Here's what you could do. Here's what you could do.
Yeah.
And so now I just make sure that my clients, it's very simple. We're going to set a path. We're going to see where you're at, where you want to go in the next 90 days across your entire life. And then we're going to work on keeping your discipline and focus on a daily basis to get there. Just so that you can actually hit a target and know what that feels like. Because we define ourselves by our failures and we isolate from our parents, we isolate from our friends, we isolate from everyone, and we silently suffer, and then we rage out on dads like you that go, why aren't you working out? And you're
Yep.
like, stop it, all you do is tear me down. Oh, what the hell is wrong with you, dad? Like, it's like, whoa, dude, I just told you, like, maybe you should go work out. Like, why are you freaking
Yeah.
out
Yeah. They
about
turn
me?
it into a martyr.
Exactly, because their accumulation of suffering that
Yes.
comes from the isolation, comes from the disconnection, comes from the inability to now connect with anyone because they no longer can connect with themselves. And then we sedate with weed, vapes, and nicotine or coffee, whatever it is. And like even here in California, I know 15-year-olds who are doing shrooms on the beach.
Yeah.
Like that's a problem. And so we're having a generation full of sedation because they don't know, why do I feel so empty inside? And it's
Hmm.
because of the lack of action and lack of direction.
Yes, and so so the biggest thing that you're seeing they're dealing with is the isolation,
Yep.
connection, ability to open up, communication, and then blueprint, like a path of where to go. And so
Because I
those
don't
are some
want
of
the
the
path
things that
given
you're
to me by
accounting
you.
for. Yeah.
You're
Oh
a
yeah.
dad. You're like, bro, you told me what to do my whole life. My teachers told me what to do. My coaches told me what to
Yeah.
do. Everyone in my life told me what to do, and let alone, I have about 1,000 people daily online that tell me what to do. Discipline is like what you were saying, that guy. Discipline is this.
Yeah.
You need to do hard work. Let me go do 15 seconds of push ups out in the dark and act like I was grinding at 4 in the morning.
Yeah.
Like,
Exactly.
it's like it's all fake. So we've
Yeah.
learned not to trust online. We've learned not to trust the media. We've learned not to trust the government. So that already portrays to we cannot trust our father, we cannot trust our mother, we cannot trust our siblings, which once you get to the bottom root of it, we now can't trust ourselves.
Yeah.
And that's where it all strings from. And that's what we work on heavily. I want you to make promises on the call, and then I want to literally be on your ass to make sure that you hit
Hold
them
us accountable.
just for you, because you know what it's like. You make a
Yeah.
promise, you fulfill on it, more confidence, more certainty, more power, more purpose.
Yes, dude, it's so true. Like I say it all the time now as a dad. My son, I always say, I noticed early on,
Mhm.
habits aren't taught, they're caught. I could tell this kid till the blue in the face to do something, he won't do it. But the minute he sees me doing consistently, he's right next to me. Hey, can I do some of those? Or hey, can I have something like, dude, I've been telling you to do like what? And, and then I realized like he's catching it. I can't teach him. Their habits are taught, not caught. And it's probably same with you now with your dad. Like you've
Yep.
seen his body, so it's like now okay, now I'm locked in too. And if
Yep.
dads take that lead in the health and fitness, it's like you don't have to tell your kid lead the way, and they will start to realize like, hey, now you're becoming my idol. Now you're somebody I respect. Now you
Yeah.
have something I want.
Hmm.
And the blueprint you're giving them is really exceptional because it is that. Like
Hmm.
I always say, the journey for me, and it's relative to kids in that you're dealing with too. It's that you can't look yourself in the mirror because you have so many broken promises. You've said you were going to do this. I'm going to wake up early tomorrow and you don't. I'm going to stop eating that and you don't. I'm going to stop smoking this and you won't. And then it's like, well, what so I don't trust myself. And so when you strip all that away and you get down to the core root of it, it's like start simple. Like a guy, I was up on a podcast a couple nights ago, and he said, "Well, how
Yeah.
do you deal with when you missed your goals?" And I said, "Because I didn't make them quantifiable. I made them action related. They were action oriented to where I had a chance every day or every 4 hours to redo that goal. So for me, it was waking up early. So if I didn't wake up early, I had a chance tomorrow to redo that. So I had some grace with myself. If I
Yep.
didn't eat healthy, I had a chance 4 hours later to get that next meal right." So I set these micro goals in my day. And so with you, it's like setting these micro goals and daily actions,
Yes.
habits that slowly string together a being. Like I see guys when they first come in and they take their beginning photos, like their heads down, their shoulders are down. And it's like the last thing I want to be doing is taking this progress pic, right?
Yep.
But like 12 weeks later, it's like they're
Yeah.
there.
They're like,
Yeah, like go ahead, hit me, get the picture. Honey,
what's
take the
up?
picture. Yeah, and it's like, and you don't tell them to do that. You don't,
Yeah.
but it just naturally, it's like the evolution of the man, where the
Hmm.
caveman's all hunched over. It's like, and the only reason that happens is because they've shown up for themselves, and now they know
Yes.
I don't need anybody else. I don't need anything to alter my mood. I'm here for myself, and now I'm here to serve other people because I've served myself properly. And so, if we can get
Yes.
these kids, these younger people, to start doing that, getting the blueprint one person at a time, and dads that are watching this that you're dealing with,
Mhm.
sons, it's like this is the issue. You've probably been telling him or her what to do, and they're not responding to that. So the way that you
Mhm.
connect this conversation here is you got to lead the way as the dad, right? And
Yes.
you got to set the right blueprint and the right actions and habits in your own life, and
Yep.
then watch how your son will become curious more in your life. And the more curious your son becomes, the more influence you have to say, "Hey, you want this? There's a guy out there that's younger, Parker, who can
Yep.
help you. He's walked that path and he's got the blueprint." And then you're able
Yes.
to hand that kid over to somebody like you because
And
nobody is
that's
serving that market.
I completely agree, and it's like I'm a blue whale just sitting in the ocean by myself, and I like it that way. But at the same time, I understand why people haven't tried to do it.
Yeah,
It's hard. It's very hard to do, and I completely agree with you. The way that I see us father and son's relationship is no different than you are the entrepreneur. your dad, you're the entrepreneur. I'm the son, I'm the entrepreneur. So we get to make our business, aka our family's life, our life, work, but you're the one that calls the shots. But if I no longer trust the entrepreneur, I'm going to try to go build my own company then.
Yes.
So instead, I need you as the dad to say, hey, you need to take responsibility. I need you to outperform me because I'm the entrepreneur and I get led by you. So, no differently than we have here at Warrior, like our employees, like we are not employees. We are entrepreneurs. Our ideas matter. Like we do things that Garrett doesn't always like know of right away, but that's the point. Same thing with the son. The son's always not gonna like update dad everything I'm doing. Hey, I'm gonna do this. Hey, I'm gonna do this. A lot of the stuff we're probably gonna do before we even tell you, and then we're gonna be like, hey dad, that really worked. I saw you doing the tricep pull downs. I think I got some triceps now. Like, oh my gosh, like I love it. Hey, how did you get those abs? Like, that's so cool. But if I'm not like dads should be superheroes.
There
They
should be.
always were, and they always should be. And me coming as a son who grew up without my dad, like I can't tell you how much um I can't tell you how much it matters. I can't tell you how much pain I experienced not having a father who, and yes, I had stepdads, but they're not the same. But having a father that actually was like, I'm your dad and I'm going to teach you how to live. I'm your dad and I'm going to push your standards. I'm going to push your capacity. I didn't have that and I would give anything. I would throw well, besides my fiance, she's awesome. But I would throw everything else away to go have those moments that I missed with my dad, to
Yeah,
have those pivotal moments. And I think that most dads are so concerned with their day to days that they're not concerned about winning the day. So they're not concerned about winning the week, which doesn't allow them to win the month, which doesn't allow them to win the year, which allows them to be so caught up in all of this like work, wife, sex, like other kids,
repeat.
that they don't see that, oh my gosh, dude, your son's begging for your connection and he's probably being a little shit just because that's the only way he's learned how to get your attention.
That's
And
true.
he doesn't even know it. That's the problem. He doesn't even know he's acting out. But how many times I've talked to sons nowadays that I relate to and they've grown up with their fathers their entire lives, but their fathers are not fucking connected. Their fathers don't show up. They don't see that they are the superhero that we want to follow. So
Yeah.
they don't take the accountability, which means there's tons of sons who live with their dads their whole life, yet still end up in the same spot I was in, not growing up with my dad my entire life.
So true. It's like, bro, I say it all the time. Like, like I had these moments where I'm so deep in the business,
Hmm.
and I'm like, the days are long, but the years are short. Like my kid's 8, my other one's 5. I'm like, shit. They're like last year. I remember locking in, and it was like almost a whole year went by, and I'm like, I don't have. I'm like, I'm spending all this time trying to be the hero to them, but I'm going to be the absent hero. Like
Hmm.
I need to really recognize like every single day counts. I need to block some time for them because it's super impactful. Like it will come out. And in one of my older sons, like it did start to come out, and I was like, I'm not spending enough time with him. That's why this is coming out. It was like
Yes.
I can't be leading all these other people and not leading him properly. And so I came up with that saying, which was like, remind yourself the days are long, but the years are short. Like time is ticking for these guys, and you got to be able to be super influential. And
That is.
being a superhero and setting the standards, like that was the thing for me. Like for especially like as my son was 3 and the other one was 1, I was like knew where I was in life, and I knew they're young, so they don't know yet. But there's going to come a time where I'm going to ask them to have standards in their own life, and they're going to start questioning. Well, you don't have those fucking standards. Why am
Hmm.
I supposed to have them? And I knew I can't set standards for this kid if I don't have them in my own life. And so I knew this doesn't scale well. This doesn't scale very well as the person I am, like this, militant like guy in business and in life. But then all of a sudden, my health and fitness are out the window, and I'm drinking beers and I'm taking tequila shots and I'm smoking weed, and I'm like, this got to change. Like what's really important to me, like and Wes always said like if you're doing any of these vices, because I had vices,
Yep.
it is like you're escaping your own life, and then that made me thinking like he's right. I'm escaping something. Like I've got all this that I think I have, and like
Hmm.
I'm still looking for an escape. Why? Like I need to be present for these kids. I need to be aware. I need to be influential and set that bar higher for myself, and then watch them. And now, like all the kids in the neighborhood come in because we have a home gym, and like
Yep.
literally they say, "Mr. Dane, how's my bicep? How's my vacuum? You know, who's got the best abs?" And these are kids like 7, 8 years old, all the neighborhood kids. And literally, I got
Yes.
like 6 or 7 of them there, like showing me their abs and then doing their side pose. And I'm like, oh, he's got the beefiest muscle. He's the most cut, you know. And they're like, it's just great. But I told my wife, imagine how this impacts these kids that aren't even our kids. Like they're all
Yes.
now interested in lifting, and they're bringing that to their dads, and then their
Yep.
dads are like, I guess we got to get dumbbells in the house,
Yep.
you
And
know?
that's crazy. What you just said, like, is like it's interesting because like I never want to be the dad where my son looks to be led by another man
Yeah.
outside of me. And
Amen.
AK, like what you did, right? You are such an example that you brought these kids to a place where they are inspired by you, and they're inspired now by your son by default, just because he's your son.
That's right.
And in that, they're working out together and they're having a great time. And yes, they'll bring it to their dads, but I never want to be the dad that the son comes home and goes, Dad, like, oh my gosh, you should have seen Dane over there. Like,
Yeah.
I wish that you were like, I wish you were like my friend's dad, or like, oh, like, you know the conversations. It's like, oh, my dad would beat your dad's ass. Like, yeah, hell yes, my dad would beat your dad's ass. Like, why? Because like my dad has pride in his body and has pride in who he is. So
Yeah.
yes, he will. And there's also pride in the son knowing that, because it's like the way that we approach situations. If I watch my dad attack life, I'm going to attack life. If I'm not seeing him attack life, then I'm not going to want to attack life either.
Yeah.
And I lived a life where I was led by not my, like, I wasn't led by my dad for a very long time until I was about 19. So I know what it's like when I'm looking for I'm looking for approval, attention, and
Always.
acceptance from other men, and I'm looking from it from my coaches, I'm looking at it from my teachers, I'm looking at it from my friends, which also outside of fitness, like just as being a dad. Like, do you know how shitty your son's friends will be if you don't set the example? Do you know the type of woman that he's going to choose because you don't set the example?
That's right.
Like, it's across the board. I
Cross.
chose shitty relationships because I didn't know what to look for. I chose shitty friends because of the fact I hung out with friends. This is why I ended up in the hospital at 17. It was because I was drinking and trying to like get away from the reality of like what I was living in, and I ended up in the hospital at 5 in the morning with no pants on, bunch of bruises over my face, and I had two IVs in my arms. My mom came and like in tears, like, oh my gosh, like I'm gonna lose my son. Like, I had gone to that place because of the fact that I just wanted so bad to be validated by a man that I respected.
Yeah.
And because I did not get that from my dad, I went into groups where it was, yeah, dude, there was drugs, there was other things going on because those were the cool kids. At least that's what I knew.
Yep.
Um, Whereas if I had my dad in the spot where he was jacked as shit, he had his shit together, I would go look for connection in the gym. I wouldn't go look for connection behind the school.
That's right. It's that, dude. That's so important for these dads to hear that are watching this. It's exactly right. It's like you think it's about you. You think it's about, oh, I don't care about being fit or I'm this or that. It's like, dude, it isn't about you at all. Like my journey was never about getting jacked. It was about having the right habits, and I knew the right habits were going to lead to a body I felt good in, and that feeling good in my body was going to be allow me to be the leader I wanted to be and have the
Yeah.
influence I wanted to have. And like I've made videos about that, and it's like your kid's going to find a hero whether you like it or not.
Yes.
Like
Yes.
you either decide, is it going to be you or is it going to be somebody on the TV that isn't really ideal for your child? And because we all, whether we're close with our dad or not, we want that a boy, I'm proud of you moment, you know.
Yep.
And it helps when that dad is actually somebody you idolize, somebody you respect, and
Yes.
gets up and does the hard things every day, regardless of the situations or the cards he's been dealt. Because then that says, well, fuck, I see what he's doing. I got to keep going. I got to keep pushing. You know what
I
I
don't have
mean?
excuses if my dad doesn't have excuses. And like the one big last thing that I definitely want to put into this while we're on this topic is, and this is something that I've had to work through the last 2 years,
Yeah,
very, very heavily. Um, if you do not show up as the dad, my relationship with you directly poisons my relationship with God, because I cannot accept that the Father loves me if I don't get the love from my own Father here on earth.
yeah,
So
so
I'm
true.
like, I think about God the way that I think about my dad. Oh, well, if my dad is like this, well, then God's going to be this way too. Which it's like, I'm not trying to preach like Christianity or anything like that, but I'm just meaning like
Having that
there
higher
is this
connection.
game beyond the game. And
Yeah.
we have to acknowledge that like father and son relationships directly correlate with how you see the father himself. So like if you don't see like when I was disconnected from my dad, I ran from the church. I told them screw off. I was in the Mormon church. I got this tattoo to basically say like I'm not going back. And then I watched my dad go in and explore the conversation of God for himself. He never pushed me. He never told me to do anything. And then I found myself in the back of Christian churches just trying to figure it out because I saw my dad trying to figure it out.
Yeah.
So like it goes way beyond fitness, but fitness is going to install the discipline of curiosity and the
That's right.
discipline for you to really like see that like, oh my gosh, a weapon is not only my body, but you don't find that until you're on the other side. It's like when Wes says, I love Wes when he says like, you can't say it's all about or it's not all about the money until you have the money.
Yeah, it's
It's
true.
like that's
Hmm.
true. You can't tell me that you know better than I do. Not
Yeah.
you, Dane, but
Yeah.
like
The
any other
person.
guy or whatever, right? Like you can't tell me you know what it's like to be on the other end when you're not jacked and you don't see the impact that that created on your son.
Right.
So like, and I go against dads all the time. I will call them and literally lose it on a dad because I understand how much I wanted that my whole life and how much I would beg to have my dad to show up even to this day. You're in a hard spot being a coach for dads. Why? I'll tell you right now, the problem you're going to come into is that your son is always going to look at you and go, you better be the standard because you teach all these other guys to be the standard. But then at the same time, if you don't give him time, you're going to create resentment because he goes, wow, my dad gives time helping all these other people. My dad makes dads be better dads, and
Yeah.
yet my dad won't connect with me. My
Yeah.
dad won't make time for me. What the fuck? And so then I'll get pissed and I will start lashing out and I will start being like, screw off. And I will look elsewhere strictly because I'm not getting that connection as I watch you get on call after call after call after call. And all these guys are like, my son's this, my son's is something I experienced in Warrior with my dad
Yeah.
because he was standing as an example and I watched him pour energy on energy on energy into men, into other women that came in now that we opened that up. But I watched him pour in all this and anytime I felt neglected, I was like, oh yeah, like, I guess I have to pay my dad to get fucking attention.
Attention.
Because if I don't pay him 15 grand, then he's not gonna care. Just like he always goes and talks to all these clients, yet he can sit and have a 2 hour conversation with a client, but he can't come over and try to book a date night with me or just book a fun activity with me or even just sit down and not be preaching to me, but just like be with me, have fun
Yeah.
with me.
Man,
Like
I need to hear
fun.
that. That's so true. I've been guilty of that myself, and I didn't realize it either. Like the first 3 or 6 months, I made all these videos. I was learning Instagram and how to make these workout videos. My son loved them, and he learned from them. But then at
Mhm.
some point, he kind of like turned off, and I couldn't figure out why. I was like, he's not interested in watching the videos anymore, and I was getting more and more busy, and I didn't have enough time for him. And then I got the idea like, hey, I wanted to start now sharing more of my family because I thought it was important that
Yes.
men saw this side of me, not just like me in the gym anymore, like that I do have kids and I do have a family. And I made a video with him in it, and it was like, dude, his light, he was lit up. He was like,
Oh, he was like,
he literally said, like, you love us. And I was like, bro, he like broke my heart. I was like, of course I love you. Like, what do you mean? And it was like, I realized, like, damn, dude thought like I was so self involved that I was helping all these people, but not helping them. And
mhm.
luckily I caught that early on in the journey, but it was like, stabbed me right in the heart. It was like,
Yeah.
damn, and so I then now like, hey, I got a video for you, buddy. You're in the video, and but like they both like said that, and it was like, damn, how would they have that perspective? And I had that awareness, like, because they see me pouring so much into the business and into the videos and into the clients and into the
Mhm.
development and in the office. And then there's like very little time to just spend with them. And so I
Yeah.
had to then start being like, hey, we're gonna every Sunday we go to the grocery store together and we go play a game together. So I had to have this like this is our time. We have this day, and they now it's like the greatest time of the week for them. They look forward to like, hey, this Sunday, what are we gonna do, Dad? But I went almost like 9 months, almost a year, like where I didn't have that awareness as
Yeah.
being a preacher of this. but just building a business is hard, and stacking
Mhm.
days and wins, and getting a plane down the runway and off the air for a new business, it's
Yeah.
hard. So, but it's like, hey, you gotta make sure that all that energy is in vain unless you're pouring it into your kid as well. And
Yeah.
so, yeah,
And
dude, that's such an important point.
well, and dude, like like I just appreciate this conversation so much because this is like the bread and butter. This is what I like my life purpose. Why? Because I grew up with all this brokenness in my family that I just wanted to merge these families. Like I was so tired of being the man. Like I am the one son who I have seven. I'm the oldest of seven half siblings. So like four from my
You're
dad.
the oldest.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
four from my dad, who all the way to 1 years old. To I could basically be their dad, and then my mom's side, who has an 18-year-old, a 17-year-old, or no, sorry, an 18 or shoot, she's 21, 20 now, 17, and a 14-year-old boy, and I have all these half siblings, and it's crazy because I fight for this connection between dads with dads, and
Yeah.
I fight with this connection with sons because they're stubborn and resentful and they need to hear it from someone else that also has had pain. Because I go, bro, you can't tell me you have dad issues when I fucking grew up without my dad for 18 years. Like, imagine your dad wasn't even around. Like,
Yeah.
you telling me right now you're pissed that he got mad at you? Come on, dude. Like, really? Talk to
Yeah.
me as a man. Like, and you, like, even from a business standpoint, with, even as a business standpoint for you and for any of the guys that watch this or any of the guys that are like going to tune into this, um, your son is your insurance policy to your legacy, so you better pour into him because your legacy is going to be worth nothing if you don't. Like I'm the insurance policy on why the Warriors Way system even works and why my dad is so powerful. Because if imagine that I was just a fat fuck that didn't give a shit, played video games, and was nothing. How much of a leader is my dad in
Yeah.
the
It would
home
impact his credibility big time.
yeah. When
Yeah.
I go into when I'm on his story and me and him are on the boat or we're flexing together or whatever and like I'm sitting there and I've got a six pack, he's got a six pack, like it's like, oh, like if he's gotten the respect of his son, that's one of the hardest things to do.
Yeah.
So like okay, cuz my dad didn't respect his dad. So for him to have my respect,
It's
like I
important.
can't imagine what that's like for him, but let alone for me personally as a son, I'm like, dude, thank you
Yeah.
like, thank you for being a man that I can respect. Thank God, because
Yeah.
like I don't want to be ashamed of my fucking dad. That sucks. I deal with guys like that. I deal with guys who have fat dads. I deal with guys who have dads that are on drugs and dads that are drinking all the time. And every time their dad comes up, uh, I want to do everything in my power to not become my dad. And
So
in them
yeah,
saying that,
yeah, from the opposite.
yeah, and then they sign a contract to basically become their dad because they try to run so far away from it that now you just replicated another cancer cell in a family that's going to create with new people, new things. So now we talk about generational curses. You're ensuring the generational curse by not healing yourself and becoming fit, healing yourself and becoming the dad that can connect with his son, connect with his wife,
Yeah.
show me how to treat a woman. Because if I don't have that, yeah, I went through some abusive relationships and stuff like that. I've had to go and realize that in my relationships with women, specifically, my mom beat me on respect, but that doesn't mean that I am always going to be respectful.
Yes.
So I've had to learn that the discipline you find in your body is literally going to portray to money, to your future family, to your future wife, all these things. And the last thing you want as a man is to go, holy shit, I turned out exactly like the piece of shit my dad was.
Yeah.
Or I turned out like the piece of shit I never was going to because I never had an example to look at. And I wasn't close enough to the example. So even though I see Dane online and he's crushing it and he's showing me how to lift and he's showing me how to do this, you know what
You
he's
didn't do
not
that for
doing?
me. Yeah.
He's not in my house. He's not
Yeah.
showing me how to treat my wife. He's not showing me how to treat a woman. He's not
Yeah.
showing me how to treat his son. So that's why I think the most powerful move you ever made was putting your son in your content.
Yeah.
Because not only are you guys going to get closer, but you guys are going to be able to forge a relationship where he feels like the star in your stardom. And
Yeah.
so now he wants even
I like
closer connection. Because when I started being in my dad's videos and in my dad's marketing, I was like, oh, wait, hold up. I'm part of a movement. All human beings want to be a part of
Yeah,
something.
you start wanting to be part of that. Like, okay, my standard has to raise now. right?
Yeah,
Like,
I can't be low end. Do you know who my dad is? My dad's Garrett J. White.
yeah,
I'm in his content. I can't look like I'm weak.
yeah.
Forget that.
That's so
Like,
true. Your
so I
dad is like
become
they
your
always say, like
movement.
be the one, you know, be the
Hmm.
one that changes the generational curses. Be the one that sets the new standards for the next set of kids that comes up. It's like so many people just keep taking over what they've inherited, and it's like you have to fight against that current and be the one. That requires some discomfort. That requires not being the average Joe. But there's so many people that benefit from that. Like, you know what I
Yes.
mean? Like, um, I think somebody said it, but it was Andy Frisella. You know, he said,
Hmm.
you know how many people eat because I like expensive cars, and what he means by that is his desire for expensive cars allows him to produce so much that a whole company gets paid salaries and carries livings because of that. You know, so he decided he was going to be the one. So when you decide to be the one, it's like it's not like, oh yeah, just so I could have a good physique. Like that is just a small piece of it. It's a byproduct
So
of the
small.
effort and the human you become. But then when people look in from the outside, it's how you have the leverage to then say, yeah, let me tell you how I got here. Right. But like they've got to see you have a nice body, a nice car, whatever it is that's validates them. And usually the body represents like a very disciplined man. And then it's like, you've got my respect. I'm listening, or I'm at least curious. And the moment you get that bit of curiosity, you have leverage. You have leverage to influence.
Yes, it's
Yeah,
actually hard. And what I found is it's actually harder to pay the bill of regret of not being the one than to pay the price that it takes to be the one.
totally. It's
So,
miserable playing like waking up with regret every day. It's so painful. It's I tell
so
you guys that
painful.
all the time. Yeah.
Like, guys are
Anytime
like,
I
how do
get
you get a hump?
emotional, I get emotional like because I caught it 3 years ago. Like I'm like if I didn't catch it, I would be so regretful of who I was for my kids, for my wife. I probably wouldn't have a wife. These kids would. I was like so many things would be fucking off if I
Yep.
just carried that out. That slow boiling frog 3 years out into today versus like, damn, I caught it and I did something about it. Thank God, you know,
Yes,
thank God, and
seriously.
that's the blessing, man. Dude, I love this
Wow.
conversation.
Thank you
I
so
think it's
much.
going to add so much value to the guys that listen to this, and hopefully they share it with their kids. Tell us where can they find you, man, and what's the because you guys are Wake Up Warrior, and then yours is the Next Gen Academy
NextGen
within
Academy.
Wake Up Warrior, right?
Yes. So Next Gen Academy was completely separate. Now I'm partnering with my father because I proved myself for about a year and a half. So I'm like, hey, I want to merge with you guys. It's more backing. So we'll be merging as a partnership. And
Nice.
this Next Gen Academy is going to be, you're going to be able to find me here on Instagram, which is Parker J White. You're also
Okay.
going to be able to find me on that tag on YouTube, on any other social platform, TikTok, all that stuff. You'll be able to find me at Parker J White. But yeah, just shoot me a DM, anything like that. That's where I'm most active and where I get everyone. I'm always going back and forth on DMs. I'm always trying to get to personal text. And also, I have my website there as well, which Dane, I can always send you.
Yeah.
But I
I'll
do
put
have
it
my
in the video
website
link.
as well. And so that can be put in here too, and they can find me there. But regardless, yes, the mission of Next Gen Academy is to ultimately weaponize sons to respect and honor their dads by becoming weapons themselves.
Mm. Brother, I've truly enjoyed this conversation. I love your mission. That's why I have you on him. It's called Flip the Switch
Thank
for a
you.
reason. Like there was a switch. You had so many ways that you could have went wrong in your life. You could have told that story for many more years, like a lot of guys do. I mean, I got an uncle. He's 58 years old. He's still talking about how his dad wasn't there for him, and his father was a multimillionaire, gave him multiple businesses that he didn't show up for, and he still blames it. And so, like there's the total opposite of recognizing like there's a story I'm telling here, and I could either choose to continue to tell this and live this life, or I can start to take some accountability and realize, yeah, it wasn't a perfect picture that I had. Like it would have been nice to have my dad there, but that can change right now. The way that I look at things, the things will change. And if I could change the way I look at my dad, and now we can have this relationship where we build V2, version 2 of myself, and he builds version 2 of himself, then we're on this journey together. And I think
Yes.
that's like so powerful. And that like you now saying, hey, year and a half later, I've proved myself. Now we're going to merge together. It's like, now that's a family fucking business that's
Mhm.
helping generations of families. He's helping the dads. He's helping the moms. You're helping the kids. It's like the family dinners are stronger. The family regate. So it's not business and family and, oh, how's your work? It's like, this is your life. It's integrated.
Yes.
And when you're living an
Yes.
integrated life where you and your spouse and your partner and your dad are all like, bro, it's like there's a vibration that has been built and been created over years of pain and friction that has created this elevation for you and your whole family. And I love it, man. It's obviously how I've gotten pulled to you. So how you ended up on this show. So I
Thank you, brother.
appreciate you sharing the story here, man.
Thank you. And you touched on the best point. This is the saying we have around Warrior as well as in my family. And it's change your story, change your life.
Yeah, that's it.
And that's it. So I'm just super grateful for you, Dane. And I look forward to being able to connect with you more. By all means, like would love to do more of these. Would love to. I think you're in California, yeah?
No, I'm in Charleston, South Carolina.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah.
I was seeing your link in that because it was the app. That's what it was. I was like, oh, he's like in Santa Ana or something like that. I
He's
was
in
like, oh bro,
Riverside.
we need to work out. So
But I
regardless,
will
I'd
be out
love to
there, and
though.
we'll definitely catch up when I come out, man.
Yes. Well,
I
thank
mean,
you so much, Dane, for having me, and thank you. I just hope that this was able to provide value. I want to be able to spread the message. I want to be able to help sons and fathers more. So, if there's anything that you need from me at all, please message me. And
will
this is
do.
perfect because I'm at 1% on my phone anyways, and I was slowly panicking in the back of my mind. So,
All right, brother. Well, this is a Saturday, guys. We took time on a Saturday to record this and give you this value. So hopefully, if you like this, smash the like button, leave a comment, and connect with Parker when you can, and we'll be in touch. Later, brother.
awesome. Later, brother. Let's
Later.
go.
Let's go.